You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? It's the ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs. She's fast enough for you, old man. And this podcast. Welcome, everybody, to the Resistance broadcast.
That was such a dramatic pause you went. I was like...
You got it with Harrison Ford. Especially in the 70s, Harrison Ford was so chill. Like, if you ever watch interviews with him promoting Star Wars?
He's like, yeah. Whatever.
He's like, he leans forward and he and it was always like a female reporter and he would just captivate them. He captivated me watching it. And he was just very calm, smooth, his clean voice. It wasn't the gravelly Harrison Ford we hear today. It was this like deep, clean voice, and he would just pierce his eyes through you. Like, that guy, man, he was a suave dude back in the day. But
he's
anyway,
suave now. Tell you that much.
He's still pretty suave for an 80-year-old guy still trying to play Indiana Jones. Just don't maybe chill it with the flying to the plane stuff. But we're here to talk about something else he flew in fake space, the Millennium Falcon. So we're going to have a discussion about why do we love the Millennium Falcon? That's simple as that. We're going to get into that later. It's going to be a fun one. You know, last week we got a little deep with the Canon stuff. We like to show our versatility around here. And doing that with me, as always, is James and Lacey. Lacey, we like to have a good time on this podcast. We like to get into serious discussions and stuff like that.
What?
But I have to ask you this. Are you, Millennium Falcon aside, are you the type of Star Wars fan who likes the ships and that sort of thing? And the weapons and that stuff? Or are you not as much into that aspect of Star Wars?
So I'm definitely not into like the specifications and specifics of weapons and ships and stuff. I do find that in the past few years, I have been collecting a lot more ships. The AT-AT behind me. I got a Power of the Force Millennium Falcon at a flea market. Like, I've definitely been collecting the ships because when I was little, I wasn't really into them. But now I'm like, oh, these are so cool. And they're just like such conversation pieces in a collection. But I wouldn't say I'm like one of those people that knows all the different like pieces of ships, but I can appreciate them, especially the Millennium Falcon. Like, it's its own character in Star Wars.
You say pieces of ships?
Oh, yeah.
Piece of ship.
Yeah.
Speaking of pieces of ship, James. I know you like some ships. You're like a fan of the Ghost and that sort of thing, right?
It's weird because, like, when it comes to weapons, for instance, like, it's kind of like cats and dogs. Like, I could tell you 1,000 different breeds of dogs, but I could be like, oh, those are all cats. You're right. I don't know any.
Yeah.
It's like lightsabers I find very interesting, and I'm looking at all the different, types and who they belong to, and I feel like they have some sort of like history with them or whatever. But then when I look at like every blaster in Star Wars, I'm like, yep, blaster. Like, I know, like, it's, I can look and see, like, I can recognize a couple, obviously, but then I look at them and I'm like, that's a handgun, or like that's a rifle of some sort, like, and they just like kind of fall into all the same category. And when I get real deep into the sweaty stuff, like, I'm like, oh man, these guys really like know these blasters, and they can connect them to this line of clones.
I was
and
waiting for
stuff
him
like
to pull
that.
this
Yeah,
out.
I knew it was coming.
That's what she said.
Ships are interesting too.
Some
of them. What? John's really trying to audition for Han Solo this week. He's like,
James, I said
Hoey reading for the character of Han Solo.
No,
I'm
James,
up against Anthony and Gruber.
I said he's been waiting to pull that out, and he pulls out the gun, and I said, well, that's what she said. And there was a pause, and you kept talking, and then John went, oh.
No, but James, to your point, like, people are like, oh, that's, the DL-44, blah, blah, blah. But let's not forget, this is it's a prop that Harrison Ford pointed at some guys and yelled, bang, bang, bang. Yeah. It's like, he didn't know what it was called. So I think some people get crazy with all the Pablo Hidalgo stuff.
With ships, it's interesting too, and we'll go down the line. But yeah, it just they're interesting because they try to be iconic in the sense of like you can tell the shape by you can tell the ship by the shape silhouette. Of the silhouette and all that stuff. Yeah, it's like they're doing some design work that I don't really think a lot of the weapons get. That's what makes ships kind of interesting from a engineering or design standpoint. So that makes them interesting in that regard.
Yeah. So yeah, we're gonna get into. With all those ships that have come out in Star Wars through all the years up until recently, we still always go back to that damn Falcon. And we're going to talk about why is that? So that should be a fun one later. But first, we have something else to get into, and I'm going to hand it off to James to get that cracking.
I fear nothing, for all this, as the Force wills it.
All right, John. Well, this week we're doing Will of the Force. So we got a couple questions from patrons this week because we're doing an all-patron version of Will of the Force, which actually reminds me, if you enjoy this podcast and the other content that we put out, you might want to consider becoming a patron of TRB by going to patreon.com/resistancebroadcast. There you can support the pod for just $2. Think about that for a second. $2, you can get an entire month. As a thank you for the support, all tiers receive exclusive weekly bonus episodes and perks, and awesome additional benefits as you move up the tiers. So your support allows us to continue what we're doing, expand beyond what we're currently doing week to week. If you are able to support us, that means a lot. Thank you so much from the three of us. We really appreciate it. $2, $5, $10, whatever you guys want to do. Like I said, you get bigger perks as you move up. So whatever feels right. Thank you. Let's get to it, though. Will of the Force this week. We're doing our first one from Commander Mark at Decline Awakens, right?
Kind of Awakens.
Kind of Awakens. Mark wanted to know, will new lore about Jedi and Sith and lightsabers introduced in Visions be integrated into future live-action projects? So, Lacey, I'm starting with you on this one. What do you think? Do you think Visions is going to have any sort of pull on the future of Star Wars canon-wise?
Mark, what a great question. It's super interesting because obviously we know that Visions is not canon. However, the creators have said numerous times that it leaves it open that things could be pulled from it and then introduced into canon. Like they've kind of left it open that, hey, yes, this whole story isn't canon, but this one little aspect might be. So I'm going to say yes. I think that's a really, really cool idea. I think they did some really interesting stuff in Visions, and I would love to see that translate into live action, into books, comics, whatever, just so that we can point back to Visions saying, okay, the whole thing isn't canon, but this part is.
Mm-hmm. John, what do you think? Any chance that any of this stuff is going to get made into canon? Truth?
Yeah, I'm in Lacey's boat there. I think smaller elements, nothing story based. I mean, it'd be pretty cool to see someone get lit up with the apple slicer,
the umbrella, the umbrella.
Yeah. So I think that'd be fun. So yeah, I can imagine something getting sprinkled in there. It just seems like there'd be a better chance of something than not. So I'll say yeah.
Do you guys know that character's name? Kura from Ronin, which came
I just
out
know
this
it's
week.
Lucy Liu.
Yeah.
She did such a good job.
Do I think that they're going to make some of these things canon? It's funny because when I was reading this question, I was like, "Oh, I've got a really good answer," and then you guys both said the same thing. So apparently, it's not that clever of an answer.
No,
but,
it is a good answer if we all say it. That's a great answer.
I was just thinking, I had a feeling that you guys would go, no, they've clearly made this non-canon. It was supposed to be its own thing or whatever. And what I was going to say is anything that's non-canon falls into that category of legends. And they all kind of say they have the ability to pull from legends if there are elements of certain stories that they like, that they want to make canon at some point. And any piece of art or any piece of lore that is in the Star Wars umbrella is something that could inspire an idea. They go, oh man, that's really cool. I like that. Is there a way that I could integrate that, but in this other story that clearly doesn't have anything to do with it? But yes, That one aspect is pretty cool. I like that. The only little caveat asterisk I would put on this is don't expect something that contradicts current canon. Like, for instance, a lightsaber changing color drastically between person to person. I'd be surprised if they brought something like that in, considering it would then go against what we've already experienced and how kyber crystals work and stuff.
Sickening.
Right.
So I as long as it doesn't conflict, then I say, yeah, they're free. Go ahead, pull it. And we'll make it a canon story. Yeah.
I'm just upset that they didn't have Mara Jade and Visions.
Yeah.
Oh, gee.
I mean, that would have been the place to put it.
That's the place.
That would have been the place. They would have said, hey, Star Wars is not just what is official or whatever. Let's go back and revisit some of these other stories that never happened and just kind of play within those worlds, Yeah.
Some guy with a gray beard and a plaid shirt kills her. Just
I get it.
George Lucas didn't like Mara Jade.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, we got it.
Next one is coming from Commander Michael Schilling. And Michael asked us the question, will Lucasfilm lean more on their Disney Plus content than feature films to perform most of their storytelling and then let the movies be their big event arcs? I think I know what John is going to say with this, so I'm going to let him go first. What do you think?
This is just this was a tough question because it's just, I feel like it can be interpreted in a lot of ways. Because the arc is, oh God.
I'm gonna go to Lacey on this one while John thinks it through.
If Lacey has a direct answer, I'm still not sure.
I was actually gonna say that thank you, patrons. These are great questions that things that I don't even consider that you guys come up with, which is really cool.
Really?
Yeah. The lore thing.
Well, okay, we'll get to it here in a second.
Okay, so Lucasfilm lean more on Disney Plus content. No, I think ultimately they're still going to want to do more movie stuff. It's weird because Star Wars is treated so much differently than Marvel, which Marvel is still their flagship, I would say. In Disney movies too, they've stressed that even though they're making this stuff, the movies are still the movies. We still want you to go out. We still want to make a ton of money. Movies are movies. The only brand that's leaning more into the Disney Plus stuff is Lucasfilm. So it's interesting that this question is will Lucasfilm lean more on Disney Plus content? Because technically the answer currently right now is yes, because that's the only thing that they're doing is these 11 series in production. They have a couple movies coming and Rian Johnson's hypothetical out there series that we haven't heard anything about. So I don't know if they'd lean more than they're already leaning. I think they're already in that camp of, hey, we're going into Disney Plus. I would love to say yes, Star Wars is always going to be a big movie thing, but right now, currently, they're not showing us that's the case.
So, I'm going to give John a little bit more time. When I said really, I didn't mean really patrons give good questions. No, I meant really as in I'm surprised that you guys didn't lean exactly as you said. Yes, 100%. That is exactly what's going on, It's kind of an unreal thing, and it's good that the question it's kind of being addressed here. But to me, I've been kind of saying this for a while, that I think they've made it very clear that they're leaning into Disney Plus 100%. They're oh, we're going to make television shows, multiple.
I think COVID changed
new
that,
animated, new animated shows constantly coming out. It used to be, you had the Clone Wars, and that was a big deal. But it's now they've already done Rebels, they've already done Resistance, they've already done the Bad Batch. There's going to continue to just be more, and I think that what they're doing with that is they're playing, well, this is Star Wars television and we're really excited and it's live action and it's real and it's great and it's all that stuff, but it's not the movies. And I think they're going to try to go back to that. We did, episode 7, Rogue One, episode 8, and then people were getting tired, and then Solo, and then they were really tired, and then we're like, all right, well, we got to wrap this up, but then we're going to take a big break while we refigure out that rollout of movies. And I think they're doing that now because what they want the movies to be are big event arcs. They want the big story of Star Wars to be these movies, but they want all these real stories that you can connect with the characters over long form. That's their plan for the future, and they're going to continue to do that more and more and more. Marvel's the exact opposite. They already have the movie game. They're branching into television now. Lucasfilm is right now we're going to put everything towards television, And then when we get our heads together back up, we can start hitting those like billion-dollar box offices again, you know, with Star Wars being the big thing, you know. Maybe leave Solo and Rogue Ones, even though Rogue One was great, you know, like at money making. Maybe leave that stuff out of film and let the big story be the films, because we can put shows like Rogue One and Solo, make Solo 2 happen, right? We can put that stuff on Disney Plus. Those don't need to be films. I was very much like, yeah, that's exactly what they're doing. John, just to move things along, are you on the same page? Did I convince you, or are you like, no?
I blacked out.
I figured.
Because to be fair, I think, John, out of the three of us, you're the one that's always like, oh, movies are the big events. They'll always be the movies. Yeah.
I started this whole thing by saying, I think I know where John's going with this, but he seems conflicted a little.
No, yeah, so I don't think it's like either this one's doing it or this one's doing it.
Sure.
I think it's just because of numbers, sheer numbers and volume. The amount of series and the amount of hours each of these series are going to have, it's Disney Plus. You're getting 8 hours of, or not 8, 4 or 5 hours of Boba Fett. You're going to get 5 hours of The Mandalorian 3 times. You're going to get, and that's, the amount of a whole trilogy. So from that perspective, yes. And you're getting all these different stories. You're getting the Acolyte in this era. You're getting the Ahsoka series here. You're going to get the Lando series. So the obvious answer is yes. But to me, that doesn't mean that they're not going to go big with the movies either. I just think they're doing a little bit of a hiatus, and I think the timing's perfect, like Lacey said, because of COVID. They don't, their next movie's still 2 years away. I think we're still in store for a lot of big-time Star Wars movies in the future, but in terms of what's going on right now and for the foreseeable future, just, again, like I said, amount of series and the volume of those series. I'm not talking about the special effects thing. I'm talking about literally the amount.
The volume
is your answer. So, yes.
I do have a little bit of a follow-up question that I just it popped in my head is, if you guys think that, Lucasfilm was sold to Disney in 2012, correct? 2012, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I can't help but wonder, now sitting in 2021, if Lucasfilm was up for sale now, who would buy it?
Amazon.
Would Amazon buy it? Would Netflix buy it? Would,
Amazon, I think.
You really think so? Because I feel like this would be something that Netflix would eat up.
No, I still say Disney, actually.
Interesting.
Can anybody compete with Amazon money? I don't know. I'm not a business guy.
Amazon is
Elon Musk comes in, he's like, I'm going to buy this and then make it all real.
I mean, he did
Amazon right
buy
now,
Lord of the Rings.
That's what I was going to say, is like right now their big play is Lord of the Rings, and that's their big thing. And right now,
Warner Brothers
if
is Harry
Lucasfilm went
Potter.
up for sale, I don't think that they would want to be like, oh, well, let's double down on a huge property before the Lord of the Rings thing has even really come to fruition. I think right now they're putting all their money there. And all their hopes for branching out Amazon Prime to be even bigger. But I don't know, it's a good discussion. Maybe
because it's a different world we live in than 2012, where Netflix wasn't this powerhouse, Amazon Prime wasn't the thing that it is now. It just makes me wonder, like, what studio would want to purchase it? Like, even looking at the J.J. Abrams projects, where all these people are vying for J.J. Abrams' attention, what that would have looked like now for George.
I tend to think that George sold it to Disney. He didn't put it up and Disney bought it. I think he in his head was like, I'll give it to Disney and Disney only. So I don't think it was I don't think it was really up for sale. So if we were doing the same thing, I think George would have said this is a Disney thing. It's always going to be Disney.
Decades. Yeah.
Right.
Okay, moving on to the next question, because we got some good ones and a great discussion to talk about here in a few. Commander Jared Hurst wanted to know, will the Darth Plagueis book become canon in the near future? Lacey, this one's yours to start with. What do you think?
So currently the Darth Plagueis book, I'm going to be honest, I haven't read it, it's Legends, I'm assuming.
Yep.
All right. It's interesting. I feel like that's one of those characters that fans are always looking to find out more about. I know John constantly talks about it. I feel like he brings it up every couple months that he'd love to find out more, see it come into fruition with Sheev, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Will he come? I don't know. I don't think he's on the plate right now. I think he's on a list somewhere in a notebook, but I don't think he's on the idea board in front of people making decisions at Lucasfilm. So I'm going to sadly tell you no, even though I'm assuming, Jared, which is a great question, that you want to see this happen. So I'm sorry, but no.
Yeah, I'm getting the vibe that it has something to do with Kenobi coming out sometime soon, maybe.
Sure.
Near future. Maybe there's something connected there. John, what do you think? Do you think they'll make Plagueis a canon book in the near future?
No, because they haven't taken anything that existed and said this is canon now, right?
From Legends, yeah. I mean, they've taken bits and pieces. Like Rey looked like Bastilla Shan,
but they've never made a current non-canon book
product
canon.
Right.
They're like,
Correct.
You know what? Actually, we are going to go ahead and now add this in, so this story is now true.
Yeah.
There's only 2 like little examples that I can think of, but that was very early in the process when they were like, do we do this Legends? Do we go ahead and make this canon?
This is the
and
same
it was kind of, we'll go ahead and
argument-
let it be canon, but
Yeah.
This is the same point I made about the Knights of the Old Republic game. Like, they're not going to do that because it handcuffs the story group. It handcuffs, because everything, if you say this is canon, everything in that is canon, and then you have to change your storytelling around that.
Which is prior to all this other stuff that they're doing.
And they have a card to play with Plagueis that hasn't been played yet. And it's a blank canvas, sort of, besides from what Palpatine said, in Revenge of the Sith and everything else we heard.
There are canon novels that talk about Plagueis, and they talk about him. No, I mean, but also like, some of his story, like there's new canon material from Plagueis. It's out there, but.
Yeah, so the short answer is no, but I think they are going to explore Plagueis sooner than later, but it's going to be just new, and who knows, maybe it's even tied to the end of the Acolyte or something like that. So
right.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna triple down on the no on that for the reasons that we said. They've never made something that was Legends before all of a sudden canon, as they like reevaluate things. And part of my decision on this too comes from a quote one time where I saw Pablo Hidalgo was asked on Twitter, is the reason you're not making Plagueis canon because of the Kenobi stuff? And his response was that and the Plagueis stuff. Which I thought was great. It just it's like,
that's good.
This book exists in this other thing, and there's things in it that directly contradict what we have as canon. So it's impossible to make it canon because it just exists exactly the way that it is. That being said, if we ever want to explore this character again, John's right, we get the clean slate, and whatever they liked about that story, they can make that the canon, and whatever didn't, they have the opportunity now to kind of switch it up, instead of like being like, well, this book is so good, we got to make it canon, but we have all these problems. I guess we'll just have to figure out ways to make them work, and it's just like a problem. Like, why not just wait and let the problems solve themselves, and we have a new story, So that is our answer, Jared. Last one we got here. Commander Jay MacArthur asked us the question, will we ever see a live action Force Ghost or Force Animal version of Kaanan Jarrus? John,
James,
you're going
you gotta
first
go
on this
first.
one.
No, James, you gotta go first on this.
I'll
go
first
quick.
on this
The
one?
answer is yes. The answer is yes.
Oh.
All right, so my turn. No, I mean, I am interested to hear what John has to say about this, because there's some behind the scenes of us having a discussion on this, and I think that's kind of what he was excited about. But I will say really quickly, no.
I love that you said quickly and then paused. Quickly.
Well, quickly as in I said no, and then now I'm done.
Oh, you're not going to give why? Are we just maybe to be continued?
Yeah, I have a hard time picturing this character other than Freddie Prinze.
Yeah.
And I don't think he's right to play Kanan. And I understand that you could say this about a lot of other characters that are happening in live action. Like, I have a hard time picturing it as anybody other than Taylor Gray. We're going to get that character and it's going to be great and it's going to be that person. I don't know. I'm having a hard time picturing Kanan outside of the animated world. And sure. I think that it's very easy for them to say Kanan never learned how to be a Force ghost. That was before his time, and his passing was his passing, and that was part of the story. They want him to be a character that you remember and not that you interact with. And then on top of that too, I think that if they ever did want to get into the interaction of it, they could very easily be Force Ghost. It's the voice. It's like the original Star Wars Obi-Wan, not Force Ghost Obi-Wan, 1977 A New Hope. You hear the voice, and the voice is Kanan, and it's Freddie Prinze, and they could play in that world, and everybody, and it would make fans happy, and it would make new fans feel like everything was okay. I just don't think we're ever going to see a live action for it. And also the animal one, I don't think he's the wolf, if that's what that is leaning towards. I don't think he turned into the wolf or anything. So, all right, that was my short answer, right?
Yeah,
John?
your brief answer.
Well, you wanted me to go further. Answer. I was going to say no.
No, the answer is yes, and it's going to be a reveal at the very end of the Ahsoka series. He's going to appear in front of Ahsoka and Ezra, and it will be the voice of Freddie Prinze Jr. Canonically and continuity-wise, based on our conversation last Thursday, he was the voice of Kanan in The Rise of Skywalker.
Yep.
So it's going to happen. It's going to be the big reveal at the end of the Ahsoka series.
But it's another a person playing.
Yeah,
it's an actor playing the character, but it's his voice.
It's going to be. They'll get Freddie in there. Do that.
Interesting. All right.
So
he's an actor. He's a legit actor.
But the reason I'm torn is because Ashley is the voice of Ahsoka at the end of Rise of Skywalker, but she's not Ahsoka in the live action series.
That's a good point. That is a very good point.
You're welcome.
I still think.
I'm not
taking back the book.
Obviously, Freddie is great, and he's a great actor, and all that. I'm just saying it's one of those things where sometimes you do have someone who looks like or is modeled sort of towards a character, and I think if you did it, you could convince me, and I'd be like, all right, that's Kanan.
Sure,
I'm okay. But he's on the border, man. I sometimes look at him and I go, that's not Kanan. That's the voice of Kanan, but I don't see him as the character.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
So I'm kind of torn between that, but
Lacey, are you leaning?
Where are you
towards
landing?
No?
So I think we will see Kanan. I don't think it's going to be Freddie Prinze. I think we will.
So
you have to.
So
you
yes.
can't tell this. Yes, you can't tell the story of Ahsoka and the look for the search for Ezra and that whole story with them without having Kanan show up at some point. But it gets tricky, like I just said, because his voice is used, but it might be someone else, just like Ashley's voice is used, and then it's someone else. Because I agree with you, James. I don't see that connection either. And I love Freddie Prinze, and I still don't see it. So my answer is yes, but I don't.
It's like How I Met Your Mother. It's like it's Bob Saget for 8 years, and then then they're like, all right, Josh Radnor, you're going to be the voice of your own guy now.
Yeah. No,
it's just tough because I love She's All That, and I love his other movies, so it's like if I see him, that's what I think of. It's not, I don't think of Kaanan Jarrus.
Yeah.
Well, if he does film the Ahsoka series, like the rumor is they're going to be filming next summer, and if he's on the after they're done filming and stuff, he's out around, and people get word that he did it, they're going to say, I know what you did last summer, Freddie.
Oh my gosh.
I literally was waiting for the build-up because I knew that he was doing the rambling thing. Oh my god.
That's a good one. That is a good one. That is.
I knew what was coming. I saw the path happening.
I want to get into our next discussion, but I do think we've hit on quite a good few topics tonight. about, you know, who would Disney sell to, and so a couple what ifs right there. And then a little bit more about, you know, Kaanan and his possibility of showing up later down the line, because, you know, he's a Jedi and Jedi can appear as Force ghosts. So it always
and he's a fan
has to
favorite
be
character
that question, right?
outside of just being a Jedi.
Yeah. So so that's going to be it for Will of the Force this week. I just want to say thanks to all the patrons who actually, you know, took the time to go in there, write in a question, submit it for us, try to come up with something clever, because most of these people who are submitting the questions are regulars watchers of the show, right? So they know what we're talking about on a regular basis. So they're kind of giving us the questions that we're looking to talk about that we haven't yet talked about. So thank you guys for submitting those. John, what's up next on the docket tonight?
All right, our discussion, teased it at the top. Why do we all love the Millennium Falcon?
Obi-Wan once thought as you do.
She'll make 0.5 past light speed. Yeah, she may not look like much, but she's got it where it counts. That's right, folks. We're dedicating the entire discussion to the fastest hunk of junk in the galaxy, the Millennium Falcon. As the years go on, more and more ships enter our lives in the Star Wars galaxy. From the 327 J-type Nubian to the Ghost, the Razor Crest, rest in peace, and more. But our hearts will always belong.
They blew that up.
Yeah,
they did. They blew it.
Keep us on our toes, man.
Our hearts, though, will always belong to the Falcon. Why? Is it simply a case of what came first, or is there something more to it? Let's have some fun talking about the YT-1300 freighter that tormented the Empire and First Order for decades, the Millennium Falcon. I'm going to start. I definitely think it's a big-time nostalgia aspect. It is the one that set the bar. If the Falcon comes later, maybe it doesn't get that love affair, but it is... and we're going to probably say this word a lot in this conversation, iconic. Like Lacey said before, it almost is its own character. The sounds of it, the sights of it. What I love most about the Millennium Falcon, and I made this like connection today when I thought about this discussion, which was, I think, the third discussion topic we talked about doing today. But... I remember growing up on Herbie the Love Bug movies, and those movies are all about this down and out guy who gets this car that's not supposed to be worth a lick, and it wins these races and helps this guy put his life together and stuff. It's the underdog story. And that's what the Millennium Falcon is. Yeah, Han says it's the fastest ship in the galaxy. This is a freighter ship. It's not supposed to be the fastest piece of junk in the galaxy, the fastest ship in the galaxy. They made it that way because they loved it so much. They put all this into it to make it the best ship they possibly can. And it is, you know, not the most attractive ship and all that, but it is always the ship that somehow gets them out of trouble. It's the exact story of Star Wars and the Rebellion in ship form. It is the ultimate underdog. And I personally always attract myself to the underdog story. I love those types of stories, and I see that in the Millennium Falcon. It has character, it has soul, it has heart. It's like the exact opposite of the Nubian starship from the Phantom Menace to me. So that's why I love it, in addition to the obvious nostalgia element and, of course, Han and Chewie. So that's where I'm starting. Lacey, I feel like you... might love the Falcon a little more than James. I could be wrong there, but I'm going to toss it to you to give your thoughts, and then James, and then we'll just have some fun chatting about this iconic ship.
Well, yeah, the Falcon's definitely my favorite Star Wars ship, and I think that's kind of plays on what you said earlier, John. Is just like it's that nostalgic thing that everybody recognizes. Like I just, from second grade on, I know what it is, and James touched on a little bit earlier about how, you know, with Star Wars specifically in the design, it's just the silhouette of it. Like you can look at any t-shirt with the outline of the Falcon and you know what it is. Like even people that don't like Star Wars know what it is. I love everything about this ship. I think the funniest thing is, like you said, John, I don't think it is the prettiest ship. Like it's not the coolest looking one. And it's got that weird side cockpit that you're like, how is this possible that this makes sense to be able to drive this? Because you think about sitting in your own car and you're like, imagine sitting on basically your rear view mirror and then you're driving your car around.
Yeah, but also we don't sit center in our cars. It is really stupid that we sit just to the left or just to the right of the center.
Right. Right. No, you're totally right. But yeah, no, everything about it is just so awesome and iconic, and I'll always remember this moment probably as a Star Wars fan for the rest of my life. Is in the Force Awakens. One of the biggest moments in the theater was when they revealed the Millennium Falcon, when Rey goes, "Oh, that's garbage." And then she's like, "Well, the garbage will do." And then they cut to it and you hear that music swell up from John Williams. People cheered. People were cheering, clapping, screaming, carry on, because people love that ship and they know who comes with it. Obviously, Han Solo and Chewie. But just the idea of knowing that that's a safe space, I think that's kind of where I feel with it with Star Wars as a Star Wars fan. It's like you just know all the awesome memories that have happened there. You know that once you're on the Falcon, you're going to be saved because they always get out of it. No matter what happens, like that ship is perfectly fine. And I'll never forget, like, going through the lead up to the Rise of Skywalker, there were discussions and like people would throw out there like, what if the Falcon blew up? And you'd get like livid. You'd be like, no way, absolutely not.
Yeah. I would just tell them there's no chance. Yeah.
No, like jokingly livid, but it just plays into the whole idea here that we're discussing is like, we could never imagine Star Wars without the Millennium Falcon. And I don't think Disney or Lucasfilm could either. So you're never going to see it go away. And that's why they sat it in the theme park, because it's one of those things that everybody sees. But I'm interested to see what James thinks.
So this was interesting because it was like, why do we love the Millennium Falcon? And it's kind of always been one of those things similar to Star Wars just in general. Like, when did you fall in love with Star Wars? Well, I didn't. It's just kind of always been there, right? To me, like, when I see the Millennium Falcon, I know it. I like it. It is the ship that it is. But there's never been a moment to me that I'm like, man, that's why I love that ship. Or, or I was so blown away by seeing it for the first time or anything like that. It's just kind of always been the Millennium Falcon to me. So I almost had a hard time with this. Like, why do we love the Millennium Falcon? And I really had to sit and think about it. And from my opinion, my perspective on why I think people like the Millennium Falcon is very similar to why somebody would say they like their first car.
Oh,
because
good idea. Yeah.
It is usually... your first car is you bought it pretty cheap, or it was given to you, it's used, it's run down, and you never have the money to fix it, but it's your car and people feel really connected to it. Also, most typically because it's like your first car, so it's something that's special to you, and it's something that it's probably the most expensive thing you've ever owned. And it's kind of funny to think about Han, like that's probably the most expensive thing he owns because he deals with a lot of money, but that's the thing that is the most expensive thing. It's his house, basically. And that's how teenagers feel. Like that's my car. That's my friend's car. That's my car, or maybe I'm the one with the car and all my friends, they're like, oh, he's got the car. Let's hang out with him. He's an awesome guy. And this thing never works, man. My stereo, I got to hit it 3 times, or you got to really give it something to get that car. Tick, 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 tick. Come on, baby. Come on. And you're always giving it that. You always want your car to do it. And John, it's funny that you mentioned How I Met Your Mother earlier, because I actually just like a week ago happened to see the episode of when Marshall's car died at 200,000 miles. And they're like, they're going through all the stories of him and how he's loved this car, and the tape deck, like it keeps playing the song over and over. It's like locked in. And so it's just, I'm thinking about how they've put this world, or this understanding of people and their relationships with inanimate objects, into this thing, and it struck so well that when the audience saw that, and they saw Han, and they saw Han's dog, and they're flashing back to when they were a teenager, and they had their Pontiac, whatever, in this case Pontiac Fiero, and they're driving around with their dog, it's just like there's something there that, and they had to roll the windows down because the air conditioning doesn't work. It's just those feelings of nostalgic pleasure come from watching this thing and seeing the Millennium Falcon and being like, that's my car. And one other element that I thought was interesting to this too is most people's cars in the real world didn't make it, or they fell apart, they were crappy, or like you were hoping to get to that place and you didn't make it, you ran out of gas. But the fantasy of Star Wars is that the Falcon always makes it.
And makes it past the owner at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, it's one of those things like that thing is just going to keep going, and it always manages to get the heroes away. And whenever you need it, the hyperdrive's not working, but then, at that last second, boom, and they take off. The car pulled through, and that is a fantasy that your car never did.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, that's a good point. The personal connection. And that's like personal nostalgia in addition to fictional, like watching entertainment, be drawn back from that. But the other thing too, it's like the Falcon is a vehicle in storytelling just as much as it is a vehicle like literally in the story, because it affords so much of the humor in Star Wars too. Like Chewie with his little welding goggles sitting there on top of the thing welding, and Han's yelling at him, and Chewie's like, come on, I'm over here working on this thing, and he's like, all right, take it easy, or bring me the hydro spanner, and the wrench falls and hits Han in the head, and all
they're in the
these
floors,
things,
in the ceiling, on top.
R2 falling into the pit when they take off in the hyperspace, BB-8 having to latch on with his wires, there's the door not always functioning right, or Luke and Han in the gunner seats, Beckett hurting his thumbs. There's just so many things that the Falcon affords them to do, and it was in 1977, it was so fresh because sci-fi is supposed to be the sleek, fancy, smooth ships,
right?
And like George Lucas is like, I'm giving the junker, like
the
James
prequel ships. Prequel ships are very sleek,
are very smooth
clean,
and sleek and elegant, so were the weapons. And this is like, here's this junker, this used car lot junker that you're gonna fall in love with because you want to root for it.
Right.
If everything was easy for them, there's no charm there. So like the two-prong effect, like in addition to me loving the underdog thing, is it has charm to it. It probably, it has its own like, smell, and it's stained and it's lived in and that sort of thing. But also just like the amount of comedic moments in Star Wars they were able to pull off using that as their stage couldn't be done without it. And I think that's one of the bigger parts, because a lot of people skip over like how funny Star Wars is sometimes, because they really get serious about their arcs and all that stuff. But Star Wars is very funny, and the Millennium Falcon serves as as maybe the biggest literal stage for that to happen, and being able to play off of elements and environments around the Falcon. And that's another reason why I absolutely love it, because it made it easier for the writers to put jokes in and bits and connect characters. Han and Leia in the cockpit when they're in the worm and it shakes and she falls into him. I mean, or when she's fixing the thing and can't do it and he puts her hands around her hands. The Falcon helped them fall in love.
So I definitely think there's something you're touching on here, because we always say, we joke that it's basically one of the characters. It really is. It really is one of the characters. It's the only ship
beyond
that
the
I can
L3 thing too. Like
yes,
what?
Yes. No, we're talking
beyond the L3 thing.
Before that, we said it. Before the L3.
Yeah. No. Yeah, I'm not. But my thought on that is like, I'm not positive, but I think it's the only ship that's personified in the saga too. Like,
right.
You don't really ever hear Luke saying like, I hope we can make it to R2, but he's not like, man, come on, baby. Like, come on, X-Wing. Like, we can do this together. There's something about how Han treats the Falcon like it's a person, or it's a child, or it's a puppy, or it's a whatever. It's his thing, and there's a connection there that really personifies it as something that is really like an engine that it's really trying to do its best for the team and for Han. It's one of those people. And John, you really nailed something too. You said lived in, and that just is another thing that I didn't mention too. Like, everybody has the car where like there's a stain in the back from when your friend dropped the mustard or whatever, or there's like a cigarette burn, or, you know, there's always like some sort of story that comes from the people that are hanging out in the ship. And a lot of Star Wars happens on the Millennium Falcon. So as an audience member, we feel like, even though that's, you know, maybe that's not my car, that's my best friend's car, but like when he's selling it, it's like, man, we had so many good memories in that car. Remember when we drove it up to Cleveland or whatever for the weekend, you know, or that concert? Like, there's your memories and your stories go into a vehicle or an inanimate object sometimes. And I think that when we think about Star Wars as a whole, part of those things are happening on and inside of this ship. Like, the story is kind of unfolding there. Luke learning about the Force from Obi-Wan and having the conversation with Han. That all happens in this like room that might as well have been the back of a hippie truck. You know what I mean? Where you pulled the seats out and threw out some blankets, and now you're sleeping in the back. This is like the space version of it. You got a little bar and a chess table. Like, it's your
even though that's
space.
the case, and your car is a piece of junk, if your friend accidentally scratches it, you're like, dude,
yeah,
come on. And that's Han telling Lando, you promise, I got your word now, not a scratch on this thing that's beat to hell.
And you have to remember what he did to it from Lando in Solo.
Yes, that's so amazing.
Yeah.
Lando had this perfect ship. So Lacey, actually, I want to go to you because we talked about how it helped the storytelling, how it helped the humor, the personal, real life story nostalgia, just nostalgia as a fan of Star Wars. But the toys, like I'm not even a toy collector, and I have like several Falcons, and I have a Power of the Force in my attic. Like you said, you have the Power of the Force. I have one in the box in the attic for my son when he gets old enough. Like,
I have
like touch
so
on the
many.
toys, because you went hunting, you found some, so touch on
I have
what those mean to you and that sort of thing.
Well, I don't know if they mean anything to me, because it's not like the same as like things from when I was little. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like my Akbar, which is like has a personal story to it or something like that. But I think just having the Millennium Falcon is like one of those things, like it's like a piece of Star Wars. You know, you're just really pumped to have it. The funny thing I was going to say, though, going back to Solo really quick, is I feel like we all had this reaction, actually, when they had the trailer for Solo, was how clean it was.
Yeah.
And I know we were talking about that, like, oh, you remember the stain, you remember that. I remember a lot of us were like, wait, why is it so clean? Like, what happened? Like, how did it get from point A to point B? And I think that plays into that whole thing about the ship of being like, everything has a story, but you want to know what that story is. But yeah, no, anytime I see a toy that's a Millennium Falcon, it's so cool because it's just a cool looking ship. It's just that thing that you're like, I need this because it's like one of the standards for Star Wars, like a lightsaber, the Millennium Falcon, and something else would be like those three things that scream Star Wars to you.
And it's cozy too. There's like, I haven't been in the one at Galaxy's Edge yet, like for the ride setup, but just watching the movie and seeing like they have that little like kitchen corner couch.
They got
with
the bed.
Little chess table. Like it seems cozy. Like when they're like, in Empire Strikes Back, when they're fleeing the Empire, you feel like kind of like safe, and you're with your friends in this little clubhouse, like when you were a kid. That's what, like, when I watch Empire Strikes Back, that's the feeling I get, because 80% of the Empire Strikes Back is spent on the Falcon with everyone but Luke, and maybe that's another part of why I love the movie so much.
And that's why they put it in the theme park, because everybody has that connection with it. Yes.
Yeah, and like sort of like James said about having the car as a teenager, having the clubhouse as a little kid, the treehouse, like the Falcon is that sort of thing, you know?
So I was also thinking too, when you mentioned the toys, and I was like, so how do the toys, because people got the toys, but they had to have wanted the toys for some reason. Like, what was it about that toy that made it appealing? And I was trying to put that together.
Because now I own the Falcon.
That's true. But I'm going to take a guess here, and I'm going to relate it to like Power Rangers, for instance. Like, okay, when you go to the store and you're looking at all the toys, you're like, oh, cool. They have like, the Black Ranger, they have like the Red Ranger, or whatever. And you're looking over your toys and you feel like those toys, like maybe collecting them all like is out of your grasp, but like maybe collecting one, right? Mm-hmm. But then you think about this, like all of those toys like were associated with like the dinosaur, the Zord. And then all those Zords came together and it was the big thing. And that Megazord toy was like $150 or something like that. And it was like, dude, like out of my grasp. I can't even like I wish I had that. That's right, every kid was looking up at the Millennium Falcon as the one toy that was the big get. It was the big expensive toy. So anybody that, you're watching the movie, it was just like, man, I wish I had that toy, Right. It's like, I would love to have a Han toy. And then sometimes you got it. It wasn't that unreachable, but the big Falcon, it was expensive. You could beg your parents for it. Maybe you'd get it for Christmas or something, but it was the big get. So when kids finally got it, it was like, I'm going to love this ship forever. And there was like that. And
I feel like people still feel that way with it. It's like that's the big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. It's not even the ship. It's not even what happens in the story. There's a real physical element of like, it's just the big toy. It's the big expensive thing that I want. And when I got it, I now treasure it. And it means something to me that I owned it and I had it, that I'm going to carry that with me for the rest of my life. Every time I see it on screen, it's going to remind me that I wanted that toy or I got that toy, whatever.
That is very true, because I gave away my Power of the Force Falcon, and it wasn't to a stranger. I gave it to my nephews, and then that was before I even thought of like I'm gonna have kids. And then I was like, crap, I can't ask for it back. So I went and like found another one on eBay, so I had to buy another Falcon, and that's the one that's in my attic for Johnny when he gets a little older. But I was just thinking of something, and I don't know if this counts as a crash landing, but if it does, when Han crash lands the Falcon on Savareen, when like everything's like the landing gear's gone, and he just lands on that pad. That means the first time Han flew the Falcon and the last time he flew the Falcon, he crash landed. Because he crashes in the snow in the Force. That's the last time he flies the Falcon.
Yeah.
So I that has really nothing to do with the conversation. But I like bookends, and I wonder if that was on purpose. Times,
he did exactly what he had planned to do. Like, he's like, trust me, I've got a good plan. The Kessel Run. And then with the trees on the Starkiller base, I don't ever ask until I've done it, both times, he's truly Han Solo flying the ship that he loves the way he wanted to fly it.
Yeah. And is it Han or is it the ship that got him there, that pulled it through? Like, the ship managed to make it through the Kessel Run. It held together. And it was right about to fall apart, but it made it, and that was the point, that they made it to Savareen.
The deleted scene in The Force Awakens where he puts the dice back on the Falcon, which I'm surprised they took that out, but him just being in the cockpit, Harrison Ford grabbing the seats and smiling and stuff like that. And Harrison Ford will never admit it, but maybe he did feel a little like, wow, like I feel like I'm 34 again or whatever, you know? But, and that, like, that scene, and like even like Alden's first scene when he jumps over the seat and for the first time gets into the pilot's seat and he's flipping the switches and stuff. Yeah. And he goes like this and he like gets comfortable. That's amazing. Like, it's just like, that's another part of why I think I love the Falcon, is just like the relationship between Han and it. And how like Rey takes care of it. Like when Poe gets back and he blew the alternators or whatever, and she's like, what'd you do to the Falcon? What'd you do to the Han ship? That's what she calls it. Yeah. It's just like that aspect too, like how much the characters care about it, and we care about the characters, and we know the characters, so we know that that they really do cherish that ship. And seeing Luke take the dice and having one of my favorite Luke scenes in the sequel trilogy is him on the Falcon with R2. There's just so much we could probably have spent a whole hour on the Falcon, but I think we touched on a lot of the big points. I don't have much else aside from the sake of just, I want to keep talking about it, but I know we're up against time. So do you guys have any more final points you want to toss in? And it doesn't mean we can't revisit this in the future. This was actually a really fun talk that I think we maybe even just scratched the surface on.
Scratch the surface of,
not a scratch.
Yeah.
I think, there's a reason it's my favorite, and it's a lot of Star Wars fans' favorite ship. Like, we could just keep going on. We haven't even really talked about the sounds and like everything like that about it.
That's a great point. Yeah.
But I think overall that I'm going to always keep collecting it, and I'm always going to buy the clothes with it on it and the bags and the pins and the stickers, because it's just one of those things that's so recognizable that you just feel happy when you see it because of all the things that we've said here, that it like, Chewie, we're home. Like, everyone freaked out at that point because not only was it Han and Chewie, but they were back on the Falcon again. So, yeah I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah. When the question got brought up, I tried to stay away from certain things that I was like, well, I think that's happening because this other reason. Like, I think like we have great moments in The Force Awakens because we were already drawn to the ship, and now we're having a good moment because we already liked the ship. But why do we like the ship? Like, I was trying to get to the core of that. Another thing I try to stay away from was because of firsts, you know, but there are a lot of firsts that naturally just lead to why I think people like it. Like, for instance, I mean, I might be wrong on this, but like, it's probably the first ship we ever saw go into light speed, you know? So it's like that when we're fascinated about how a ship could even go into light speed or hyperspace or whatever, like, you're looking at it and you're like, wow, that's crazy. That's something the Millennium Falcon could do. Later, they kind of say just about every ship can do that. But like, when we're watching the movie for the first time, we're experiencing it, it almost feels like that's what makes the ship great. We learned that that's what made it great. And then all the other ships later have that feature too. But I think there are plenty of really unique things. And, you know, I just find that more examples of how it's like kind of reminding me of like a car or like someone's first car. I feel like I could just go on and on. One that popped into my head is that they're going down the tunnel in Empire Strikes Back. They turn the headlights on. It's like, it's just, like it could have had one spotlight. It could have had 3 or 50 spotlights that would be like this big bright light, you know, or whatever, but it doesn't. It's got 2 headlamps. That's it, right on the front of the car, if you will.
Well, and George Lucas is obsessed with cars, so that's definitely
and I didn't mention that, but I thought about starting with that. Like, I think the reason people like this is because George had this fascination with cars, and he wrote that into this character. The character being the Millennium Falcon. So, John, I think you're right. There's a lot.
Graffiti, like,
there's a lot that
Bob
you
Falfa's this muscle car is his Falcon, you know?
There's a lot that you could pull from the Falcon and reasons why. And I think we're either on to something or we've really nailed it. But yeah, I think that's why people love the Falcon.
Yeah. So we'll put a bow on that for now. But I'd love to revisit this again because, you know, this is one of the times I look at the timer and I'm like, man. But thanks for everybody who listened to that and watched this discussion go down. Let us know why you love the Falcon. If they're you know, cliche reasons, that's cool too. You know, we listed a bunch of those, but are there personal reasons, things that you think why people like the Falcon that maybe we didn't bring up? Either way, we hope you enjoyed the discussion. Quote tweet the episode why you love the Falcon. Comment on YouTube. Share it with a friend, and we hope you enjoyed it. We're gonna talk a little bit more about the Falcon down the road, down the line, as I like to say. But we're not done yet, so we are going to hear from you now in our next segment. Lacey, what's going on?
All right, guys, it's time for Resistance Transmissions. So the way that this works is every once in a while, almost every week, John puts up a crazy, wacky situation on Twitter at RBATSWNN, and you guys give your answers. It could be a situation, fill in the blank, caption this, all different types of fun stuff. So this past week, the situation is, let's revise history by revising a famous line. Yes, it is revised twice. I'm not imagining that. A famous line of dialogue in Star Wars. Fill in the blanks, and we'll read a bunch of them on the show in #Resistance Transmissions.
There you go.
Have fun. So the line was from Vader, and he said, "When I left you, I was but the blank. Now I am the blank." This reminds me of that game from like the 60s and 70s that they used to play. What is it? Oh, Match Game. Match game.
Oh, match game.
Yeah.
So the
When I
original
left
line is,
you-
when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
I thought it was,
Thank you.
I was but the chicken sandwich, but now I am the chicken taco.
Well done.
Is that
James.
not right? Was that not it?
All right. First up is Jetta Rosewater at Jetta Rosewater. Hey, Jetta. She said, Vader, when I left you, I was but the sous chef. Now I am the master chef.
Master Chef. Love it.
Da-da-da.
Well
All
done.
right.
Good job, Jetta.
Yeah, is that Master Chef?
Well, I was just picturing like
the
the
show?
lights and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Joby1, Jedi Joey is up at Jedi Joey, who's one of our generals now. So welcome to TRB community. We're excited to have you.
Joey.
He said, when I left you, I was but the normal one. Now I am overly flamboyant voice. Fabulous.
I would pay to hear James Earl Jones do that out of the Vader voice.
Fabulous. Next is Rob Petcow. Petcow?
At Pet Cow.
At Mad Cow of Genesis.
It's probably Cal then.
Yeah. He said, Vader, when I left you, I was but the poodoo. Now I am the bantha.
That's good.
Next is Steve Tracksuit Mafia Lamson at Kremlin Cardinal. Tracksuit Mafia? What color's the tracksuit? Steve said, when I left you, I was but the Colo Clawfish. Now I am the Sando Aqua Monster.
I like it.
That's well done. All I can picture now when I hear Colo Clawfish is Dryden Voss being like, would you like some Colo Clawfish?
Yeah.
Next is History Hokey at History Hokey. Well done. Way to get your handle. And History Hokey said, when I left you, I was afraid. I was petrified. Kept thinking I could never live without you by my side. Now I grew strong and I learned how to get along. And so you're back from outer space.
Yeah.
The funny thing is, like, the first 5 words, I was like, okay, when I left you, I was afraid. And then as it went, I was like, well done. All right.
That's good.
John Roca's up at the Roca Says. Hey, John, how's it going?
Hey.
John is killing it with his reviews lately. I don't know how he does so many reviews. He's like, I'm releasing 7 reviews today. And I'm like, how many hours in the day are there? John is killing it. All right. John said, Vader, when I left you, I was but the Roca. Now I am the outlaw. And then he wrote 2 self-promotional. Fine. Nah, we'll give it to you, John.
I
makes
only
sense.
added it because he admitted that he was
I think it's hilarious. Even if he didn't put that, I would laugh. Okay, next is Wolf King Jeremy. Hey, Jeremy, at Wolf King 2010, he said, when I left you, I was but the egg. Now I am the chicken.
That was
All
similar
right,
to mine.
next is Chris Chappell at Sea Monkey Business. Nice, I like that. When I left you, I was but the junior associate. Now I am the branch manager.
Now I am the assistant to the regional manager.
Now I am the branch manager.
Next is Pedro at Pedro Gringas, who said, when I left you, I was but the Eggman. Now I am the walrus. Cuckoo Chew, the force is not with you. Well done, Pedro.
So good. Yeah,
I
love that
so
song.
good.
I'm a little thrown because I thought when they said Eggman, it was going to be a Sonic joke.
No, I knew immediately it was going to be Beatles.
Like when I left you,
I'm
I was
the
but the
walrus.
Eggman. Now I am the
Cuckoo
Robotnik.
Chew.
Yeah, James, you know that this is a Beatles song, right?
Yeah, I do. Unfortunately,
You're
I'd
so-
rather it be Sonic.
Yeah,
I
honestly.
wish
Yeah.
we recorded that late night conversation at Celebration when James was going on about how the Beatles are overrated.
Oh,
They are
Really?
overrated. They're 100% overrated.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of people would
One more
take
to go.
offense to that, and
Here
James
we go.
is usually not the
They
person.
do take offense to that, and they shouldn't take offense to it.
Number
But I'm
9.
saying you're usually not the person that like pushes that confrontation. Like, hey, I have a very hot take. I want to like just.
Oh yeah, James loves to be the ruffle feathers guy once in a while.
It was so funny because John had a couple beers in him, so he was like, "What? The Beatles?"
Couple dozen.
Yeah.
And I was sitting there like, I want to go to sleep. Anyway, last but not least is Kyle B at Luke's Green Saber. Hey, Kyle. Kyle said, when I left you, I was but the Hayden Christensen. Now I am the David Prowse.
That is unbelievably good.
Well done, Kyle. Guys, thank you so much for your answers. If you want to be on the show, make sure to follow us at RBATSWNN on Twitter. And you could be on the show. Back to you, John.
All right, first, a quick thank you to all of our generals and spice runners on Patreon. We talked about it before. Your support means such a great deal to us, so we want to give an extra special shout out to our 2 top tiers. Generals, Carmelo, Andrew Staley, Jeremy Myers, John Reese, Jetta Rosewater, Paul Olson, Jake Houchins, Oliver Lewis, Frank Grande, Haz Aslam, Joe Ritchie, Darth Hurricane, John Charlton, Nick Kratz, Christian Morales, Brian Smith, Matt Chitty, Joey Mayfield Stewart, Nathan Shank, and Val Trichkoff. Thank you, Generals. Our Spice Runners, David Probus, Neil Shaw, Double C, Chris, Kendall Gelnar, Ryan Warra, Dave Hornack, Micah Harrison, and Thomas Hennessy. Thank you all very much, and thank you to all of our patrons in the base. The best. Make sure you subscribe to the show on your preferred audio podcast platform. It's free, 2 episodes every week. And of course, youtube.com/Star Wars Newsnet videos. We're almost at 7,000 subscribers. We're aiming for 100,000, so try to get us there before.
We'll have to do a giveaway at 7,000.
Yeah, for sure. We'll give away 7,000 Power of the Force Millennium Falcons.
Oh, word.
No. Anyway, that was a jokey joke. Make sure you go to StarWarsNewsNet.com every day for all of your Star Wars news, reviews, editorials, information, and more. Johnny Hoey on Twitter. Writing and editing at Star Wars Newsnet, and my movie podcast, Just Like the Movies. Next up, we're going to be doing Disney's animated Aladdin. So we're going from almost an X-rated movie to a G movie. So that should be interesting. Lacey.
People can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Lacey Gillerin. You guys are the best. Thanks for listening.
James.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Myra Trunks, and also on my movie podcast, where next week's we're going to be revisiting Aladdin, the animated movie.
You too?
Yeah. No, not you two. Aladdin.
This is
You're
so
going to do a
bizarre.
podcast on you too?
No, not on you two. On the movie Aladdin.
All right. Well, I'll see you around, James. No, but we hope everyone has a great weekend. We'll be back, as always, on Monday morning with another episode of TRB, which stands for The Resistance Broadcast. See you around, kids.